episode of the Byproduct podcast. I am your host, Ian Pruckner, and I'm excited to be spending a few minutes with you getting better together, because when we get better, things get better. And man, I'm so excited to have a friend of mine, just an absolute business rock star, the incredible Sarah Robbins, on today. Sarah, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited too. And so just a quick intro. So Sarah and I have known each other for a long time. We actually went to church together back in Michigan.
Yes.
Both of us are ex-Michiganders these days. we got out that mitten. Any state that is shaped like a mitten, you know, you just got to go.
You want to be in. You want to be in the sunshine.
You just got to go. If your state dadgum looks like a mitten, you got a problem, right? And so you're in California, I'm in Florida, where we both saw warmer weather, but that's amazing. Yeah. But we've known each other for a long time, and Sarah has built one of the most impressive, remarkable businesses. She is an absolute powerhouse in the relationship marketing and social marketing space, has built an absolute huge brand that everybody would know the name of, and just has had phenomenal success in that business. Has become an investor, an entrepreneur, runs coaching groups, mentoring all sorts of women and leaders in all sorts of spaces. It just has an incredible heart for giving and charity. You and I are partners with some of the same missionaries and do some of the same missions work. We were just somewhere together. I don't remember where. Houston, I think, was the last time we were together there. But you're just a good all-around person. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a business leader, you're a philanthropist. I mean, the accolades go on. And so welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I know your time is valuable. I want to jump right in. So you have built arguably one of the biggest businesses in that space. I don't know how many distributors you have, but I'm assuming it's tens or hundreds of thousands probably.
Hundreds of thousands, billions of dollars in sales in a year. We actually did in 5 years what takes most people in our space 50 years to do if they do it. So wow. It's been an amazing 15-year plus journey.
That's amazing. With the same company, yep. Loyal, true. I mean, you just don't see that in that space very often. Somebody who finds their niche, builds it, builds great relationships, stays in that process. So that's really amazing. And billions of dollars a year in sales, that is another amazing accomplishment. So top 3 things that created that success for you. If you had to, I know there's a lot, but if you had to pick 3 things, you know, most of our audience, they're entrepreneurs, they're starting their business, they're new in their business. We've got 7- and 8-figure people that listen, but if you had to boil that billions of dollars a year in sales down to like, I did these 3 things well. Mm-hmm. And if you do these 3 things well, you're going to grow in whatever aspect you're wanting to grow in. What are those 3 things for you?
They came right to mind and I wrote them down. And the first and foremost is simplicity. I think one of the things that I do well is take things that can be more complex and make it simple for people. That's the former kindergarten teacher in me. It's like, okay, let's keep this really simple. Next is when I learned what needed to be done was creating systems for things. So saying, okay, what's an actual system, and really just stepping into leadership even when I didn't feel equipped or prepared. And then the last thing would be being a student of my craft. So when I started my business, we didn't have any mentors, really anybody to look up to that was teaching us how to do what we needed to do, because we were, my mom and I, truly 2 of the very first. And so I would go to industry events. I would invest in those things. I would read the books. I would learn the stories. And I said, you know what? If these people can do it, I can do it too. I just have to learn how. And so I've always been invested in being a learner, because I know that there's a return on that, right? It's like shortening the learning curve. So investing in mentorship saves us time. But also too makes us money, right? Like that's the thing. It's like shortening the learning curve, learning what I needed to, and actually implementing what it needs to be done. And I would say, if I can add one little other part of it too, is being consistency. It's like consistent every season, no matter what happened. Leaders play the long game, you know, so just being really consistent over time.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, we could do the whole episode on just those 3 things. I think a couple of points there. Let's start with the consistency, right? One of my favorite sayings there is that leaders do every day what non-leaders do sometimes. It's not that they're doing something different. It's just the consistency, the compounded effort over time. And a lot of people think like, oh, I work 6 days, I take a day off, I come back at day 8. No, you come back at day 1 until you have some momentum going and then making it happen. The other thing I love is that you talk about being a student, and right there, like your example, hey, I didn't have mentors. I didn't have any anybody to lead me. So I went out and I found that and I invested in myself, right? And so many people you're going to lose right there because like today people want it handed to them on a silver platter. It's like, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And they don't want to have to be responsible to going out and learning that information, but that didn't stop you, right? Like you sought that out, and success loves speed, and mentoring buys you speed. That's what it buys you. It saves you the years of experience so that you can go really, really quickly.
That's it.
So that's amazing. Talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges that you had. So you don't build $1 billion a year business and not have issues, right? People probably looking at you and say, oh, it must be nice. You got so lucky. Everything you touch turns to gold. But you and I know that that is not true. It's very, very far from true. What were some of the struggles, the most marked struggles that you can remember along the way? And how did you deal with them? And then what did you learn from them?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of self-doubt in the beginning. And I think that is the first thing that causes people to want to quit. It's like fear of rejection, right? It's like, what if this idea doesn't work? What if this business doesn't work? Or what if I don't, make it work? And I think that was a big thing because here I was in this business of networking and being afraid to talk to people. And so equal to doing like all of the personal development, again, learning the business, I had to learn how to grow myself. And in walks books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, and showing up at networking at groups where I literally thought I was going to die. I have yet to die doing this. So that's a great news. But literally stretching myself. And again, just saying, okay, but at the end of the day, when I invested in me, it didn't just make me a better leader. It actually made me better in every single bucket of my life, every single role of wife, of mother, as friend, as leader. And so I think that was the biggest one, is really that feeling of self-doubt. And then I would say the other thing is like understanding seasonality of business, of the economy, all of those things. And I know so many people walk out on. It's like, whether it's like business, real estate, et cetera, it's like these, they walk out on, the very thing that they started because of a bad moment or a bad season. Yeah. And so it's like understanding like that all of these things actually come back around. And for me, I started my business in the recession of 2008. When it was the craziest time to start a business. And, like Motown, Motor City, we were like, back in the mitten. Yeah. And,
that's when we had our first big explosion, was in that,
that time. That's it. And so it's like when we are in those pressure seasons, that's when it's time to, just kind of pivot. And instead of just saying, oh my gosh, I'm buying the whole, like the economy is bad, business has to be bad. Well, that's not true. It's actually the time to, take that leap of faith and start something new. And so, it's really just kind of like being innovative during some of those, trying times too.
Yeah, that's when you go all in, right? That's when you do the opposite of what everybody else is doing, because everybody pulls back. I mean, you're seeing that somewhat right now, right? Like it's the end of the year, it's Christmas, it's the economy is real shifty, the people running our country are real shifty. Everybody's like a little on edge, right? But now is the time when you go all in. Like now is the time you double your marketing dollars. Now is the time you double your ad spend. Now is the time that you burn it a little harder, right? Because there's a vacuum of all the other people are like, I'll get after it January 1. And all of a sudden there's still a need for the product, the service, whatever it is, but there's not as many offerings out there. So instead of doing what everybody else does, which is chill or wait and see, you go all in, you go hard, and you can gobble up market share like dadgum Pac-Man out there, right? Like, well, all these other people are pulling back. Two things. So you talked self-doubt.
Yeah.
And listen, like people look at people like you, they look at people like me, and they see the confidence, and that confidence came from competence that was developed over decades of doing things. But I wake up every day and doubt myself in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure you're the same way, right? And you talked about building yourself, and that helped you build the business. And I love that because today I think we've gotten a little one-sided, like the grind culture and all this stuff that's out there. And, winning in all of the areas of life is that's the only win that counts, I think, right? Like you're winning in business, but you lose your family, your kids don't respect you, you lose your health. You're not in a good place with the Lord. Like, what did you really win?
Yeah, for sure.
What did you get from that?
Yeah, I always say don't sacrifice your why in pursuit of it. When I work with mainly women in my business, and I ask them like, why are you doing this? And it's usually something tied to family. It's something tied to spouse, children, life, legacy, all of those things. And then all of a sudden it's like, but wait a minute, right? And so I'm always like, when you look at, because when I started my business, I started with a full-time job. And my husband had his own business. So it was like times 5 full-time jobs. And of course, I'm helping with it. But instead of looking at like, what things do I give up with the family? I'm like, what are the other things that I'm making exchanges for so I can be present? And even to this day, running 2 really big businesses, I'm raising 2 babies. They're still very young. So I was talking about earlier, just the boundaries that I set and how I, decide to do my day. And it's like 3:30 comes, my kid is home from school and everything else gets shut off. And I've made the determination in my business, really, because I'm not like working in the ER or whatever. There are no emergencies in my business and everything can wait until the next day.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget why we started. And I think it's so important to remember why. And I still am at this place like where people have all these ideas for all the things I can do. And I'm like, man, in this season of life, if scaling means sacrificing my family, that's just not where I'm at right now. But I look at people with grown kids or in different seasons doing all the things and have the big teams, and not meaning teams like team I lead, but like sales teams and all the things. And I'm like, maybe that's a someday thing. But right now it's like, yes, I am Sarah Robbins, leader and coach and consultant, but I'm also mother to Gabriel and Judah too. So it's just, a different season of life that I'm into.
That's so good. I love it. I'm in a similar place, right? Where it's like, I could be at every networking event. I could say yes to every opportunity to speak on every stage and do all these things, right? But I want to be away from my kids. I have my kids. My kids are a little older than your kids, right? And I have them for a limited window of time.
Yeah.
And I love what you said. You should make a shirt of it if you have it, right? What did you say? You said, don't sacrifice your why in pursuit of it.
Yeah.
Listen, y'all, let me say it again. Don't sacrifice your why in pursuit of it. It's so interesting because there's sort of a ditch there too. There are some people who use their why as their why not, right? And it's like, well, I'm not going to do these things because that's not really healthy, right? Like you want to give your kids the best shot at life. They need to see mom and dad getting life their best shot, right? Yeah. So you can't use them as a reason why not, but also can't sacrifice them on the altar of the dream because then you get the dream and it becomes a nightmare, right? There's a balance there. I love that. Yeah. Talking about the seasonality, so good, right? Because everybody's in it when it's good. But when crap hits the fan, when things change, when it's not as easy. I saw this funny meme the other day in this business owners group that they sell. It's like a for sale by owner business group, right? And so I'm always watching for deals in there. And this one guy always posts these funny things. And he posted this meme. It said, "We don't do this because it's easy. We do this because we thought it would be easy." And I'm like, that is the truest statement I've ever heard.
Yes.
But all that to say, people give up when it gets hard, right? Yeah. And I wrote this down. They have wrong revelation, right? Many times people look at turns in the economy, turns in buying habits, turns in whatever, and they think like something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm not getting it. I don't know if God wants me to do this anymore. And they have a wrong revelation. They're looking at an effect and they're assigning the wrong cause.
Yeah.
And then they don't continue in consistency because they have evaluated this incorrectly. And there's so much wisdom in that. Guys, businesses go up and down.
Sure.
That's what they do. And sometimes it's of no cause of your own, right? And like to be able to look at that and say, I have to go through this.
Yeah.
Like this is not an option for me to stop here. My dream didn't go away because it got harder.
That's right.
My dream didn't die because it's difficult, right? So good.
Yeah.
So
I always say pressure promotes you. At the end of the day, it takes you out of the camp of complacency, pushes you into your destiny. I think about when I was a teacher facing the loss of my job in the recession of 2008. I was the most requested teacher in the building, but teacher tenure trumped performance every day. So we all know what was happening, specifically in Michigan in the recession of 2008. Yeah. So there I was, and I could have just crumbled, but instead I was like, okay, like gotta hustle, gotta look for, something and, something that I can just do to make ends meet, to pay the bills. And like in walks opportunity, dressed a little bit different than what I expected,
Yeah. And let's talk about that. Yeah. Because I think that's how God works in our lives. In fact, we have a model, right? So the nation of Israel was expecting a governing leader. They got a child in a manger.
Yeah.
Right. That's God. God likes to do things in ways that don't look how we expect them. Yeah. And I think that's to help us depend on him and to look to him and to seek him on that. But talk a little bit about that, because there's some people watching this for sure right now, and they know that this is how it's going to happen. What would you say to that?
Oh my gosh, that surprises us. I will tell you what, but it's like The best story, it's interesting because you brought up a Bible story. I learned so much of the story of just the leadership of Moses over the years, and again, how God he uses the pressure in order to push us to the promise. And I'm like, man, but you see all the way. And here's the thing. It's like, really, what is the answer? But then it's like the journey through. The answer is trusting the Lord. Like all the way from Exodus through Numbers, you see the Israelites just like blaming their leader, blaming God, all of these things, and almost like having temporary amnesia that every single time in their life when they needed something, they were protected and they were provided for, like the bitter water sweet, the manna from heaven, the parting of the Red Sea. Yet they go and they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back when something feels disappointing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, could you imagine, like, if you had a promise from God and you just knew that you knew? Like, unfortunately, like, we don't always just know that we know. Yeah. But the thing that I can say is I have always been able to lean into that trust, that faith to say, he protected me there. He provided me there. And you know what? He's going to do it again. And sadly, at the end of the story, like only 2 out of 2 million, make it. But, who were the 2 who made it? It were the people who didn't just size up themselves to the problem. They sized up the problem to God and they said, God is greater. He is faithful and he is able. And so there I was, like, just praying, like, Lord, send me opportunity. And I didn't know what it looked like. I was the least qualified to do it. But at the end of the day, we've all heard that saying that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And it is like a modern day Bible study. I'm always like, it is the funniest thing that he took a shy teacher with no network to be a professional networker. I mean, it's still the craziest thing to me, but I think it goes back to trust. And of course, just being like open and available to the thing that, God calls you to do.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. And, we have such a similar story too. So I was actually going to be a teacher. My degree's in education. I student taught English second language, freshman high school science class in the Warren Consolidated District. And you made it further than I couldn't do. I'm like, I cannot do this with my life.
Stop. I taught ESL too, but actually in Wisconsin.
It was an interesting time. Let's just call it that. Yeah. But let's talk about the teaching, because you said something. One of your strengths, one of the things that helped you is your ability to simplify, right? To take complex things and make them simple. The ability to teach and transfer knowledge and transfer belief and it is a skill. It's a learnable thing, but there's not a lot of material out there on like how to become a great teacher, how to become a great communicator of ideas. There are lots of communications books, but not specifically about idea communication and movement communication. Couple of tips there, like somebody wants to get better at becoming a teacher, having that teacher's heart, being able to explain complex things and make them simple. What would you say there would be a couple of tips?
Being a student yourself. I mean, it's so interesting because our company will do training for brand new people. And I've never looked and said, that's beyond me. I go every single time. So for me, to be a good teacher, you have to be a student and you have to keep learning and you have to learn something until it becomes second nature. And once it's second nature, you can share it again. Like back when we were sharing the opportunity behind our business, I was on every single one of those calls with or without a guest. So meaning it may or may not have been making money in the immediate, but I was learning, how do I share this? How do I invite people to this? And now, of course, I could do it with my eyes closed. So how do I become a good teacher of it? It's by being a student of it first.
Yeah, that's so good. And a serious student, right? Like people, they want to rush past the learning and the mastery and just get the result, right? But it's the process that qualifies people for the prize, right? And, it's an interesting way to look at things. You got to be a student if you want to be a great teacher. It's the same way you got to be a great follower if you want to be a great leader first, right? Like great leaders are often first great followers, almost always great followers, because that's how you learn the leadership techniques and tactics is by sitting under great leaders and listening to them, being coachable, not just agreeable, but like coachable. Like I'm actually going to do those things that you're telling me. So talk to me a little bit about your vision. What are you excited about right now? Where are your passion projects? I know you are big into investing into others and making the world around you a better place. Share a little bit of that with us.
Yeah, I'll share with you just kind of like every month, Phil and I, we meet and we do our giving goals, which we attach to our growth goals. Like what are the areas that we're excited about? So because it's always, time that we can sit, reflect, give, pray, all of that good stuff. And for business, it's so interesting. As somebody approached me about writing a book and they were like, hey, you can have a bigger stage by making your audience more generic. And I have such a heart for my profession. I was like, I got to write the book that's on my heart first for like this whole like industry and people that I truly love that's blessed my life. And so that's one of the things to share our system. I call it the multiply method that really builds our sales team. It's my heart and my passion to make it simple for people, to give them systems, teach them how. So that's on like the big project list for this year. And I'm so excited about it to just give back to a business that has truly blessed us and changed our life. And then on the family side of things, for us, continuing to build those angel houses, our orphanages, that we do overseas. And we don't just give, we go. As we're preparing, now and during the Christmas season, we always build one. And then we get the book of all the kids' names and faces and show our kids. And of course, it would be a dream to be able to bring them someday when they're old enough to like hang and handle that trip. But just really here's the thing is our income grows, so does our impact. And so it's being able to serve more people, bless more people through what we do through the coaching stuff, but also through what we do in giving as well. And it's just been a joy and a privilege to be able to do that just freely and generously.
Yeah, it's amazing. Talk to me about how you deal with negativity, right? So you and I, we're old school Facebook friends, right? And every once in a while, you're on there shining your light, doing what you do, improving people's lives, breathing belief into them. And some yahoo, there's always ones like, you're the evil monster from the seas of the loch. They're just unhappy people who are hurting and deciding that, and to make myself feel better, I gotta go out here and ruin somebody else's day. So they're as miserable as me, right? But one of the things that people don't understand, right? They think like, hey, when you have all this success and you do all that gets easier. To me, it always got harder, right? Because it was like, hey, like, I don't even know you. We've never talked before. You don't know me at all. And here you are taking a crap on my social media life, right? Like what are you doing there? But I've seen you handle that stuff so gracefully.
Yeah.
And so talk about how do you do that? Like, how do you look at that stuff? Because there are people on here that are right now, their dream is literally hanging in the balance on somebody else's opinion of them.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of what other people might think or being talked about or misunderstood or lied on. And what would you say to that person? How do you handle that? What would you say to the person that's looking at that and saying, I don't know if I want to deal with that. I don't know if I want to go through that on the way to my dream.
Yeah, it's a great point because the bigger it gets, then the more you face it. And I will say, earlier we talked about our why it is that we're actually doing what we do. And for me, it is tied to being able to bless and be generous to children and women who are in need. And so back when I used to get some of those comments or even just something internally that I was dealing with in the business, it was like a 2-week recovery period. Yeah. And I had to just really yes, it's true. I had to get so clear on why I was doing this that I wasn't going to be derailed, from my dream. Like this disappointment was going to be the thing that like took me out. And sometimes when people if it's an internal thing, I'm like, well, they're feeding a lot of orphans. Like, let them do what they're going to do. Let them say what they're going to say. People on social media, that's just something that I have. Yes, I've got grace for it, but I also have a little less tolerance nowadays, meaning like you just don't get to trample all over my mind, my emotions. Block. Like I'm here. Yep. Bless and block. I will initially sometimes, sometimes I'll respond to somebody and just ask questions or whatever. And sometimes I'm just like, no, you just don't get access to me in that way. Not my emotions, not my space, not the emotions and space of like all of the people who, showed up for, to have me serve. Like, I'm just not doing that. And I don't feel bad about it. And you know what? I've even had people apologize too. So at the end of the day, it's just having healthy boundaries, but also too being so secure in yourself and also what your mission is that you're not going to let that be the thing that takes you out.
It's identity, right? Like I know who I am, whose I am, and why I'm here. Yep. And you are not a part of any of those things. Yes. So God bless you, and I hope you have a wonderful life. Yep. And I'll be over here doing me, right? But it hurts sometimes, right? It's like, how do they not understand? How did they misunderstand me? We want to justify. And I love what you said. Like, not everybody gets access. Yeah. Like listen, I'm a recovering social media argumentaholic, right? Like, man, listen, I'm not the smartest guy in the room by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm relatively good at communicating. And when I need to communicate to you in a quick or snarky or abrasive way, I can do that better than most, right? And I would find myself these things like, you know what? This isn't serving my purpose. And it's not helpful. You can't fix stupid, right? You can't fix stupid. And don't cancel me for saying that, right? Okay, if stupid offends you, Go be blessed, okay? No, I'm gonna get 12 emails like you shouldn't say that. Not nice and hurt my feelings. Somebody called me that in third grade. So you deal with it, by just understanding it's par for the course and not giving people access and just having grace for them, right? It's like hurting people hurt people.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, they're upset at them. They're not upset at you. It's so good. So Sarah, listen, the world needs more people like you. They need more Sarah Robbins running around, investing in people, making people's lives better, giving, leading, and staying in your lane. How do people connect with you? Where can they find you?
You can find me. I've got a website, sarahrobbins.com, Sarah with an H, Robbins with 2 B's. That's where I house all of my coaching. We do have masterminds for top level leaders in social retail. Also, too, find me on Instagram or Facebook, Sarah Robbins, or on Instagram, Sarah Robbins with the number 1, because Sarah Robbins was taken at the time. So
oh my God,
there
amazing.
I am.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so funny. I had a guy actually bought my own name domain as I was growing, and then like sold it back to me. Yeah. He's like, dude, I bought this when I saw you coming up. I knew you were going to do something big, and now give me 10 G's. I'm like,
come on.
well, touche, salesman, touche.
Now you just gave everybody an idea.
Listen, we get free game, and no joke. I read a book once. I don't know what it was. We'll close with this. There's a guy who's running around in Europe. All the trademarking was different than the United States. And this dude went around and like bought up like Ford.com and all in all these other countries, like big multi-billion-dollar companies. The dude's like mega rich because he's like an internet terrorist, basically. Like I'm just grabbing everybody's stuff and I'm holding it hostage until you pay the ransom, right? It's like, okay, God bless. So follow Sarah on Instagram, go to her website. Listen, if you're in the direct sales, network marketing, social retail space, Sarah is literally the best in that space, in my opinion. I don't know of anybody that's done it bigger than you, longer than you, with more grace than you, with a better heart than you. Yeah, I've watched you from afar from a long time. We obviously run in a lot of the same circles. And so guys, listen, go there, do yourself a favor, check out some of that material. I promise you it's going to help you. And thank you again for joining us. And your time is valuable. I know that's an honor that you spend some of it with me each and every week as we put out these episodes. Thank you again for being here. And until next time.